already. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm still doing partnerships and growth for Mars Ads. So if you ever want to partner with us, hit me up, feel free. And today I'm joined with Nicola Telford and her amazing startup Views for Change. And yeah, she's an amazing female founder, and I was super excited to talk to her today. And we had to postpone this podcast a while, but yeah, happy to see you here eventually. So could you give us a bit of your background?
Sure. Firstly, thanks to everyone for the postponement. That's my fault because I had a clash and I didn't manage my diary well enough. But yeah, I'm Nicola. I'm founder and CEO at Views for Change. We're a impact marketing platform that integrates and attributes cause donations and impact into advertising campaigns. So every time someone clicks on an ad or watches an ad for a certain period of time, that unlocks some impact that the brand then generates to whether it's removing ocean plastic or supporting a specific charity they're aligned with. And we found that improves performance and brand value and all the good things that marketers are looking for, whilst also generating some impact. And I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And the idea sounds absolutely amazing. And honestly, I have no idea, not even a clue, like how you do that and like how you persuade companies to do that and how you avoid greenwashing and all that stuff. So could you walk us through that?
Sure. So the platform itself is integration led. So we work with the core sort of paid social platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or Meta now, and TikTok and Snapchat and Google. And we essentially integrate them into our platform. And brands can then connect their campaigns through our platform and attribute some tangible impact every time someone takes an action. So they'll choose what their action is and they'll choose how much they want to donate or what impact they want to have. So our latest initiative that we're pushing quite a lot is a one-for-one model with stopping ocean-bound plastic. So every ad click would be funding one piece of ocean plastic being collected from riverways or waterways so that it doesn't reach the ocean. And the sort of brand value piece that brands get from that is in the communication. So after the consumer has taken that action and they land on the landing page, our dynamic widgets and our API then pushes through that information to that consumer. So they're told, we've stopped one piece of ocean plastic because you've clicked through. And that sort of reward piece has shown, well, in all of our campaigns so far, has shown an increase in brand value and purchasing intent. So the brand's getting what they want. The impact organization is being funded to do good in the world, and the consumer has been able to unlock some impact just by doing what they were going to do anyway, which was click through on the ad. So it's kind of a win for everyone. In terms of the greenwash piece, I think the most important part for us is that it's actually creating tangible impact, and it's also we verify and report publicly on brands that are using our platform. So you'd be able to click through our widget to see how much in total that impact that company's had. And that you can sort of trace that back. So it's really important to us that not only the intention to do good is there, but also that you've got transparent reporting on what you're actually doing. So we have a number of mitigation tools in place, for example, that mean that if a brand doesn't make a donation that they've committed to, then they'll be immediately our platform will shut down their campaign from our end. Wow. So it can't say that they're making donations if they're not. And yeah, it's really important that we report publicly on what people are doing. And also from a messaging point of view, for brands, it's really important that they can convey what impact they've had with their consumers as well. So third-party verification is important to a lot of the brands that we're working with.
That's super cool. Your guys is strict, and I think I think that's good. I mean, because there is a lot of a lot of stuff about greenwashing going on, and a lot of people are thinking about the ways to avoid it and install some mitigation techniques and processes. But Yeah, it looks like you got it all in place, and that's super cool. But what brands are you working with, if you know, if you can disclose this information, or like what organizations are you working with?
Sure. So our Ocean Plastic initiative was actually in partnership with Ocean Bottle, who are an awesome organisation who not only stop ocean-bound plastic with their purchases, we're also working with them on this initiative and their plastic collecting partners. And that initiative focuses not only on the plastic collectors, but also the social impact for those communities that are most impacted by plastic pollution. And they've built an initiative essentially that enables those people to exchange plastic for money, but also access to tuition and healthcare and different education systems as well. So there's a social impact, and it's built around the community. And the outcome is that we also get to stop plastic reaching the ocean.
Right.
And that's a really recent initiative, and we've just launched that with also a swimwear brand called Away That Day, who actually also make their swimwear out of ocean-bound plastic. So there's a really nice like sort of messaging piece there around like a full circle piece. So their ads are removing ocean-bound plastic, and their products are also made out of them. So we've got a sort of really nice circular piece there.
Right. Oh, I mean, as a startup, you know, any startup, you know, has to, if they're working with marketing, right, they have to persuade companies to use their product, right, and then consumers would click on the ad or like somehow interact with it. But you've got actually three parties involved, like the consumer and their organizations they're working with, and then your customers. Does it make it any I don't know, easier in a way, or not? You know, because
it's I mean, it's quite a complex business model, because you've got so many parties involved, because you've got I mean, the people that essentially are our customers are the brands, but then we've got our sort of partners who are the people that we're building initiatives with, or charities that are wanting to be supported through campaigns. But then from the extension from the brand, like you said, you've got the audience who are the ones that are actually unlocking that impact. So it sort of creates a loop, but it's also, there's connectors between the loops as well. So it can be quite complex, but we've tried to focus down onto like who our customers are, what they want, and then we build the initiatives ourselves. So we're not trying to complicate things too much for our specific customers. We do the work, the rest of the work, which brings everyone together. And we're just about to launch as well. I've been building the service today, but we're actually also about to launch a managed service option as well. So for people starting out with ads, or are sort of not, you know, they have like different relationships with freelancers or whatever, we're also going to be supporting people in like building these campaigns as well, which is sort of drawn from mine and my co-founder's background, which is a digital marketing agency. So yeah, we're sort of bringing a lot of people together with our tech, but also through our new services as well.
Right. So are you a technical founder?
No.
No. You just said I was building it today. What does that mean?
No, so I mean, I was like designing the service, so what that would look like, and how we would deliver it, and how how that would look in terms of what, you know, reporting governance would be in place, and how often, you know, we do certain things. So service design is what I've done for years through building the agency. But in terms of actually the technicalities of things, we have a wonderful technical lead who advises and counsels me on that, because that's not my area of expertise. I just ask for the moon, and then they tell me if it's possible or not.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for the clarification. But anyway, you know, you've got such an amazing, you know, business model, and you know, it's quite complex and involves so many parties. So how did you come up with that? And how did you realize, you know, since you've been working in marketing for a while, how did you realize that, you know, this could be the next big thing, or this could be a game changer?
So I mentioned that my background was as running a digital marketing agency with my co-founder Ozzy, and we built that from I was freelancing as a marketing consultant, and then he joined me after his MBA to sort of I had too much work to manage, and then we grew that from there. And we had this sort of year or so where we were really like challenged by the fact that we were sort of sucked into this spend more to make more model of marketing and advertising, which is really common, because ultimately that's what brands want. They want their, they want a return on their investment. Right. But it was doing it in a way that was at the expense of the planet or people or even consumers, or taking them into account in terms of what they actually want. Right. So we were also at the same time doing some pro bono work for charities and sitting on some charity boards to sort of help us, I guess, offset our feelings about the work we were doing. And then we just sat down one day and we were like, surely there's a way we can bring this together, and it's not just in doing free work for people that we think deserve it. Right. And we just sort of started designing different ways that this could work. And it started out with building really high level campaigns that just aligned a brand and a charity, and saying we're supporting this charity, but not necessarily at the level that we are now. And then we built that down and down and down to the point where it was every consumer action unlocks something, so the consumer's involved too, and it's not just in a sort of wider sense. It's my action has had an impact and a positive impact, and will that then impact my from a brand's perspective, will that then impact how much they like the brand or how much they want to buy from them? And it kind of built from there. And we started doing tests, and this was before any tech existed in our business, but we started doing tests to ask those questions. Does it improve brand loyalty, brand value? Does it increase purchasing intent? Does it mean that people engage with content for longer? And all the questions that then provide a business case for it. Yeah. And in all of our tests, the answer was yes. And we were doing initially campaigns with video views, and the donation would be unlocked after a certain period of the video. And we found that on average, if you unlocked a donation at 15 seconds, then people would watch the video for 28 seconds longer than if there wasn't a donation unlocked there. So data like that was sort of proving our point for us, and then we started designing what our platform would look like and how we would deliver this to brands so they can use it too.
Oh, that's super cool. And I mean, the fact that you started testing right away, and analyzing the data, it's very it's unusual really for startups, because I don't want to say anything about that really, but
I mean, I should say it was kind of by mistake, because we sort of built it as a service, and we're trialing it with our clients, and it was an agency model then. It wasn't like a tech solution, so we didn't know we were validating a tech solution at that point. We just thought we were seeing if it would work. So and we had no idea how we would whether we'd build tech or whether we were going to deliver it as an agency service. So it was all by accident, but it was worth it by accident, because it helped us understand if it would actually work.
It worked. Cool. No, I mean, it's just saying startup preparing to actually launch, before doing something, before building something real, is very unique. I don't know, somehow the approach, because everyone talks about validate first before building anything, but somehow everyone still wants to have something to, I don't know, to touch, and something to try before they go to market. I think you've got an amazing approach there. So how did you eventually start building, and how did you go to your first client?
So, well, our first clients were in the format of a sort of service model. So they basically came to us to run their ads, and we would implement this model pretty much as a blunt instrument. So we would do all the data aggregation, we'd do the calculations, we'd invoice them for a donation to a charity. It was very blunt at the beginning. So those were mostly our clients through our agency to begin with. And then we decided that actually the problem we had was that we were essentially competing with traditional marketing agencies, which is not something we wanted to do. We wanted this to be, something that people do that's different to their existing ads or their existing relationships. We weren't in the business of trying to undercut other agencies or anything like that. There was a value aside from what they were doing. So so that was when we decided that this would be better as a platform that could integrate. So then agencies could use it themselves, brands could use it, and we can work with both of those parties instead of competing with them. Then we had a sort of scoping phase, which was very rudimentary at the time, and realized quite quickly that to build tech, we were going to have to raise some investment of some kind, or find some money from somewhere, because building tech is not cheap, and even if you want to do it, in a sort of very, very like light touch prototype or MVP, if you want to do it properly and actually get some meaningful sort of feedback from it, we needed to do that with some money. So that's when we started I started raising investment, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, this is very important, and I think it's a very hot topic, just like your business, just like making an impact. I think you got a great momentum there because yeah, it's a great thing to do, of course. I mean, it's super important, but I guess because it also became such a trend, and every other label, every other organization wants to go greener. So yeah, I think you got something going on there. And yeah, and another thing is I think the appearance of more and more women founders is also amazing. And the amount of attention it's getting, I think is great, because yeah, everyone's talking about, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, bringing attention to this. But yeah, tell us about your story. Like, how did it start? How did you know where to go, and like how did you decide? Did you go to, I don't know, to the government or to the VC or angel investor? What's your story?
Well, I had no idea, which I think is actually very, very common for founders. Even if you're not a first-time founder, if you're a first-time founder raising money, it's like an absolute minefield, and you've got so many options and you have no idea which one's the right one for you. And I think the key thing for me was initially sort of building network around this piece. And I would advise or recommend anyone who thinks at any point in their career they might have to raise investment to start building that community and network now. And that doesn't necessarily mean investors. That means, advisors and people that are connected in the world with those sorts of people, so they can add a sort of like network effect for your community to reach those sorts of people. Because when you're doing a standing start and you need money, within like a couple of months, you're not like, it's a non-starter. I wouldn't even bother, because unless you've got one person who can get you into one place that will just like give you a ticket. I just think it's really, really unlikely that you'll get anywhere, because also everyone operates really differently, and some people will accept intros, some people will accept people, they've got open door policies and they'll take every pitch. But the likelihood that most of them are like oversubscribed and will not get back to you for months is really high. So we decided to focus on angel investors, because firstly, because we were really early stage. We were pre-product. We were essentially pre-revenue as well, because even though we'd run these tests as an sort of agency service, most of them were tests, so we didn't charge a huge amount for them. And we essentially we had validation that the concept worked, but we didn't necessarily have validation that the format of delivery would work in terms of a platform. So we had a lot of black marks against us, I suppose, in terms of like traction and all those sorts of things. So we focused on angels because firstly, I think there's a much bigger focus within angel communities around investing in the founder and investing in their belief that they can, even if they can't realize the vision that they've got right now, they will make something happen.
Yeah.
And that might involve, you know, pivoting, and basically they're sort of looking, I think, to see whether you can hack it. Like, can you hack like whatever you're sort of walking into?
Yes.
And it was actually it was a long process. The first thing we did was build a deck, and I think by the end of the when we closed the round, the deck was completely unrecognizable from what it was to begin with, because it probably changed about 100 times throughout the process. And we were also doing this in the middle of COVID, so everything was online, which, to be fair, was not the worst thing in the world, because you can get more calls in a day rather than running around various cities and stuff to try and meet people in person. But it was really tough. You get so many no's, and it's really demoralizing sometimes, and you're basically like laying yourself bare for people, and there are times when you just think to yourself, like, this isn't going to come off, and am I even doing the right thing? Should I then consider maybe another form of funding, or should I look at loans, or those sorts of things? So it was a really long journey, and we were really lucky with the investors that we did get on board, because they took a sort of punt on us at a really early stage. But yeah, it took much longer than I wanted it to. It was a real grind. You have to go full time into it. I couldn't really do much else in the business other than do that. So if you don't have any money to like pay your team, you're basically just fundraising until you're ready to go. And it was tough. Yeah.
I believe you. I believe you. I pitched myself like maybe, I don't know, 10 times, and it was, oh my God, I never want to go back there again. But yeah, if you were doing it like full time, I imagine how hard it was. But yeah, how did you go to investors? Like, basically, how did you choose an investor to go to? Did you try to find someone in the niche, or like someone with an understanding of like what you're doing, or how was it? Or basically you just went to everybody?
I wish I said that I went to people in like our niche, and we did look, you know, specifically for people that invested in whether it was marketing or ad tech or like impact investors. That was our sort of ideal investor. But we also knew that at this really early stage, that like isn't necessarily something like, and also our industry, we're a cross section of two industries. So we've got impact side and the marketing side. And so finding the right people that have sort of the cross section of the two of them was really hard. So our focus was more on investors that support really early stage founders, and they're sort of sector agnostic, and what they care about is supporting the founder in whatever industry they are in, which means that they don't necessarily have the same added value in terms of network or connections, but they do have the value in terms of understanding how insanely hard it is at this early stage when you've got basically nothing and you're trying to make like this big thing out of like nothing, and like magic it into existence. So we went out, like, honestly, I treated it like a sales campaign, and I actually automated a lot of it, which is probably not what my investors want to hear. But
how did you do that? I mean, share the tricks.
I found well, I actually don't know whether I should talk about this, but basically what I did, I had like some early stage people that I'd been introduced to, so they were helping me, who were like, they didn't necessarily commit straight away, but they were helping me understand what people were looking for, how to approach people, all of those sorts of things, which is like hugely valuable when you have no idea how to approach an investor. But my thought process was like, you're essentially asking them to buy a part of your business, so you're essentially selling something to them, and it took me a while to get to that point, because I thought I was basically begging for money. That's what I went into it with thinking, and I was like, no, there is value in this idea and the potential of it, and I'm selling a part of my business to them, so that they can have a stake in this, the potential of the business. So firstly, the mindset change was there. Then I was like, right, I'm going to deal with this like a sales campaign. How would I approach people to buy like the potential of this business? And then I found, essentially, I went on Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, and I found pretty much every investor I could find in the UK that was like an angel investor or an impact investor, and also consulted loads of other lists and stuff that you can find all over the place. And I scraped their LinkedIn profiles, and I automated with Phantom Buster, which is a like sales outreach platform, basically a connection request saying like, hi, I'm Nicola, I'm the founder of Views for Change. We're transforming marketing for good. We have an angel opportunity, would love to discuss it with you. And then my theory was like, if they didn't want to hear anything about it, they wouldn't accept my connection request, because I've been upfront saying this is what I'm here to talk to you about, and if you don't want to talk to me about it, like basically just don't connect with me, and that's fine. And then if they did respond or they did accept my connection request, then I'd follow up with a personalized, I'd personalize it. I'd make sure that they were a good fit first. Which I actually, talking about this now, it actually sounds really bad, because you're supposed to find the perfect investors and all that sort of stuff, but I did it backwards. I found them first, and then I decided if they're a good fit, and then from there I would decide how much effort I would put into them, and like trying to close them. So if they were, they had a background in marketing investments or impact investments, bit like I'll spend more time with them, and I would then craft the pitch through that based on who had come back to me saying they were, or indicating they were interested, and then all while doing that, we were also just leveraging as much of our network as we possibly could. And some of, like, maybe two of our investors were basically 10th degree connections from someone I started talking to within the beginning of the raise. So I don't know, I'd speak to someone I knew at a marketing agency, and they'll be like, oh, you need to speak to this person, and then 10 times later, then we'd finally find an investor that actually had money to invest and was interested. So leveraging your network is one thing, but it takes a long time if you don't already have people in your network that are ready to invest.
Absolutely. No, I think this is something you should definitely talk about, because it all sounds absolutely perfect, and so good to like try and find the perfect fit. Never pitch to, I don't know, never pitch an NFT marketplace to a person that invests in, I don't know, fitness apps, but do it. And you never know what can come up, and who they know and who they can refer you to, and stuff like that. So the power of network is a tremendous power. And I absolutely, I support you 150%. This is amazing. I think you should you should definitely talk about it more.
I'll do an automation playbook.
That's good. But yeah, you were talking a lot about network, and I know that you're super active in social media, and you go to talks, and you go to events. So how does it help you? Of course, like ultimately it helped you fundraising, right? But how does it help you work on your business and grow it? And I don't know, maybe your brand now is also a lot bigger, a lot more recognizable. So how does it help Views for Change?
Hugely, I think. It's funny, I've got a couple of friends who are founders, and we kind of all do this thing where we say, like, we've got to post once a day on LinkedIn or post once a day on Twitter. And I actually have been really slack on that over the summer, because I needed a bit of break from the social medias. But it is unreal how many opportunities you can get just by being like present and engaging with people. And I think a lot of people that don't do it don't realize how effective it can be, and how many opportunities come out of those things that you would never have even thought were there. Like I've engaged some of our best advisors through just them seeing something because one of their connections has seen what I'm doing, or I've asked a specific question and they've someone's come back. So it is really vital. It is also really vital from a credibility perspective that your space, and you're recognizable in that space as I'm not going to say I'm a thought leader, but someone that has done enough work in this space, and they haven't just spun up something out of nowhere because they think it's the next hot thing. I'm a marketer and I care about impact, and those are my sort of core areas that I talk about. with a bit of sort of stuff around being a female founder and a first-time tech founder and all of those sorts of things. But it helps you get, like, it helps you with the sort of 0 to 1 phase, or the passing go phase of a startup. I mean, YC says that you should like do stuff that doesn't scale, and I think that's exactly what this is about. Like, if you are just like hammering away at your network and building that community and building trust and building credibility, then you'll find your first customers, and you'll find your first investors, and you'll find those people, because they're all there. You've just got to like build enough credibility that they'll be willing to talk to you. And interestingly, one of our first users for our ocean plastic initiative was someone who was connected to me on LinkedIn, then forwarded my post to a brand and said, you should do this. And then they just booked a demo call, and now they're working with us. So it's like those sorts of chain reactions are real, but it does also take a lot of time and a lot of emotional sort of bandwidth, because you can become quite sort of dragged into the your own metrics of success. Like, what if my post doesn't get enough traction, then no one cares about what I'm about to swear then. No one cares about what I'm what I'm doing, or like my business is going to be a failure because no one's liked my post, or and like those sorts of imposter syndrome pieces do come into play when you're putting yourself out there a lot. But I think it's hugely valuable, and I know people that have literally like raised investment on their network on LinkedIn. So it's valuable from every angle of the business, and also I think this is probably not the best sort of like backup attitude to have, but even if the company failed, you've built a network of people that have watched you build in public, in whatever format that looks like. You're not necessarily specific metrics and things, but they've seen you like go through that process. And I mean, I've been offered jobs, so what else, if it all goes tits up, then then at least I've done some work to do a sort of live CV.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can, I sign after, every word you say, because I absolutely 100% agree with everything, because it takes time. Like, this is how, the podcast started. We thought, oh my God, everyone's doing it, and kind of, it looks cool. But we started in summer, and we're like, oh, but everyone's on vacation. And we thought, if it goes well, we're going to be pretty much the only ones doing something over the summer. We'll have our momentum. But then again, if it goes tits up, no one's gonna notice, because there are so few people. But totally agree. And it does take time and some emotional attachment to all that. And it's great that you also mentioned an imposter syndrome, because I think a lot of people are talking about it, but at the same time I feel like it's getting to this phase when it's also almost like another trend. Everyone has an imposter syndrome, but how do you deal with that? And because you've worked in a marketing space for so long, but then you went to this impact space, so how did you like make sure that you don't have an imposter syndrome, and that you have enough expertise like to tie them both together?
I mean, I'd say I still absolutely do, and I think everyone does, and I think that's the case. I mean, I think you're right, it's being used as a sort of a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but I think it's born out of trends in the way that we live in society now, and like if you go on LinkedIn, and this is I mean, I'm just using LinkedIn as an example because this can get quite a lot for me sometimes. It's like you see all these other founders, everyone is always just reporting on the good news stuff, and I do that as well, and no one, I mean, there's like some people are talking really openly about the struggles as well, but ultimately every time you're posting, you're also kind of selling how well things are going, why people should get involved. So you don't want to be talking too much about like how much chaos is going on behind the scenes, and like the fact that you had 3 sleepless nights in a row because something broke on your platform or like, you know, you don't necessarily want to talk about that stuff because then that'll be a reason why someone might not want to then work with you. So we've kind of created this like a show reel, highlights reel of our like careers in our lives, and then all you see from everyone else is like this good news stuff. So I'm like, all these people are doing so well, but actually my life is really crazy and chaotic and it's not going that well. Like, how are they doing this? And even though I know, I'm like, in my rational mind, I know that they're just showing the good bits just like I am. And I know that people have come to me before and said, like, it seems like everything's going really well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea how stressful things are right now. Or like, I'm literally on the brink of burnout. Or I had it actually recently, and this sounds like a really backwards flex, but I don't mean it to be, but I won an award, the Founder of the Year award at the Tech Spark Awards, and it was
congrats,
at a time,
by the way.
thank you, but it was at a time where things were really, really tough in the business, and I like couldn't reconcile that, because I was there, you know, posting on LinkedIn being like, I'm the, you know, I've been awarded the Founder of the Year, like we don't, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And then behind the scenes, I was like about to burn out. And I remember saying to a couple of my friends, like, I feel like a complete fraud, because on the outside, I'm showing all these people that, like, you know, I'm doing really well and everyone's recognizing me for the things I'm doing. But actually, I feel like everything's about to fall apart. And I think we don't talk about that sort of stuff enough. And if we did, it would probably like reduce everyone's feelings of, you know, being an imposter or being not good enough, or anything like that. But I mean, it's really hard to do that without then you know, potentially impacting the sort of sales credibility of your business. So it's a hard balance to walk, but I try where I can to sort of be relatively honest with, I mean, here right now, about like how things aren't always that great, and things are really hard a lot of the time. And I think that's probably the case for most people. And I think that's where the space for, you know, your sort of more private community, or your like, you know, your female, like I've got a group of female founder friends who we all just like basically constantly moan about how hard everything is, and that sort of community is so important as well, because you know, you have to save face in a lot of public spaces. So having that, you know, support system behind the scenes that supports you even when things are really terrible is really important.
Oh, it's great. I mean, when you mentioned the group where you can just, you know, be yourself and just unleash like what's going on in the business, I think it's amazing. And you know, the support system, the relationship within the company, and you know, with your connectors and with your supporters and networks is really important. But well, ultimately, you know, a relationship with your investor is another kind of relationship, right? And what were you looking for in this way? Like, were you looking for someone who would be there and like be able to support you and like walk you through some rough patches, or someone who would just, you know, give you the money and just lay back?
So I mean, like I said earlier, I didn't have any idea how investors operated. And so I think there was an element for me of making sure that we had to have aligned values. Like we're in the impact space. It's really important to us that's the first thing that is thought about. And also we are a pending B Corp, so having, you know, asset locks in our articles and having those sorts of everyone's a stakeholder approach, and our business is a force for good, not necessarily just for profit, was absolutely vital to our investors, or our investor sort of relationships. And I think there's different ways that investors can add value. So you've got you know, you've got some that just give you money and then they basically disappear, and you send them an update every month, and sometimes they'll be like reply being like, looks good or something like that, and I'm like, great. And then you've got ones, I mean, depending on how you're sort of structuring your investment round, like we have in our first round we had about 14 angel investors. So Having
Oh,
a
wow.
personal relationship with each of them where they're all supporting you a lot is probably too much, because I mean, if I was meeting with them all once a month, then that's too much. You know, you can't spend that time doing that. So you generally find that within that group, you've got some who are more engaged than others, and also some who have specific, you know, skill sets or areas that they can help with. So one or two of our investors are like highly strategic investors who have backgrounds in areas that I need to tap into, whether that's through network, but also through experience. And then we've got a couple of investors who are basically my cheerleaders, who I love. And they ask me questions like, oh, I don't know, I'll give them an update or something, and we'll meet for coffee, and they'll ask me questions like, how are you feeling? Or like, are you okay? Or like, they'll buy me lunch and be like, are you eating enough? Literally be like, I'm like their child, but in like a way that's like they're like supporting and caring for like me as a person, and the business is an extension of what I can achieve if I'm being, you know, my best self. And that is a huge value add when you know that people have got your back, even if you need to pivot, or even if you need to like change something drastically in the team, or like you need to have a really hard conversation with someone, that you know that they'll sort of support you through that, is hugely valuable. And even ones, you know, that will put themselves out there for you as well. You know, they'll promote your business with their networks, and they'll do introductions for you. And I've got a couple of investors who actively send me emails like, you should speak to this person, I know them, I'm going to introduce you. And I think there's so much value that you can gain from your investors, but having an understanding of what you're expecting from that relationship is really important. So the ones that gave money and disappeared told me that straight away, like, we're willing to invest, but we don't want to have like any sort of don't call us if well, I mean, obviously call us if like something is about to go really wrong, but you know, don't, you know, the everyday stuff, they're not wanting to be involved in that.
Right.
But others, you know, we just go for lunch and have a nice chat and get to know each other really well, and like have a sort of supportive relationship. And then others have really specific added value in their spaces, but they're all super bright people, and you know, you can learn from all of them. So yeah, I'm lucky to have the people I have around me.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I don't want to say you're very lucky, because there is no luck involved in, you know, in a successful fundraising. But ultimately you got something figured out, and I'm super happy for you. We've got a comment here. You will find your customers and investors, they're all there. You just need to build enough credibility so they talk to you. I think yeah, that makes total sense. But let's get back to fundraising a little bit. And yes, of course, you did it in the beginning of 2020, right?
Yeah, so most of 2020 was raising. Yeah.
So did you feel like, because you know, now everyone's talking about like the investment being in a recession, you know, and not being able to get funding, or not being able to get the same amount of money that they were able to get in like 2018. So did you feel it, or was it a bit too early for that?
I think we were a bit too early to feel that. I mean, I can see it now. I see it with my friends who are raising investment, and we're also prepping to do a seed round. And in that process, I've been speaking to a number of funds and investors to understand where they're at and what they're looking at the moment. And there is a consensus that things have changed considerably, but I think it's not. It's like a reckoning that was bound to happen, because we hit our pre-seed in the time when there was lots of cash going out and high valuations, and you didn't have to have much traction. And you know, you see some businesses, like big tech businesses, just raising investment, and then crashing. And there's some great examples of them. Some of them are brilliant stories, but not great for their investors. But I think now we're in this space where everyone's realizing that just investing in tech in the way that we were isn't the way that we should be investing, and maybe these really early investments before you've even got any sort of proof of concept is not the best. However, having said that, my understanding from what I've read is that like pre-seed and seed has been sort of largely unaffected in terms of how much money is available, but there's just a rebalancing of what they're looking for. So, you know, it's not the same sort of growth at all costs. I was about to say spunk. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but spunk all your cash into, you know, in like as quickly as possible. It's about capital efficiency, like doing as much as you can for the least amount of money as you can. Validate your ideas. Make sure you've got proof. Make sure you've got like early revenue to prove that people are willing to pay for this. And if we raised investment now in this at the same position as we did in like 2020, is it 20? Where are we now? 2022. Yeah, 2020. Then I think we would have really struggled because we were pre-product, pre-revenue. We're basically an idea and me, which I'd like to think would still be worth investing in. But now I think you know, you've got to show much more, unless you are a bit lucky and you find the right person who's willing to take that risk. And I think a lot of startups will fail in this process because we've created this sort of like ecosystem where fundraising was quite easy, and I mean that, like, you know, compared to what it's about to be. I think it was especially if, you know, you had a specific if you hit one of the trends, then you were bang on. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, and I think people are going to have to get scrappy and get really creative about how they use their money and how they get traction, and can't rely on funding, because investors that I've spoken to who have capital to deploy are deploying it to their existing investments and doubling down on them. So new investments are going to slow down from what I can see, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, maybe we should talk after I've tried to raise a seed round and see what happens.
Oh yes, absolutely. We'd love to do that again, and you know, good luck. And
thank you.
I hope
I'm putting it off at the moment because I'm like stressed about the idea of doing it again, but I'm also really excited because I think it could unlock a huge amount of growth for us. So yeah, if there's any investors watching, you feel free to drop me a message.
No, absolutely. I mean, we will share it all with our network, and you know, fingers crossed, you know, we're all rooting for you. But yeah, another thing that we absolutely, I think, have to discuss is you know, you being a female founder, and have you ever, you know, had any challenges with that? And what investors did you get in the end? Like, the majority still male or female investors? What's going on there?
So yes, the majority of our investors are men, but I think that is a problem in the format of encouraging women to be angel investors. And I'll give a shout out to We Are Radical, who were massive advocates of us during our fundraise, and you should definitely touch base with if you don't know them already. But they are campaigning and also building their own sort of platform that is encouraging women to become investors. So I'm not going to bastardize their stats and things, but it's a brilliant initiative, and we all know that more women investing means more women being funded. So and women's businesses tend to have a positive impact element to their business model. So or, you know, an ESG angle or something that is, you know, an impact-led business or purpose-driven. So ultimately, if we can get more women to invest, then everyone wins. Most of our investors are men, and yes, I did have loads of problems with being a female founder.
Okay.
I think I mean, the most blatant ones were just stuff like, are you going to have kids soon? Are you in a relationship? You know, things like that, which, to be honest, I just literally didn't even expect at all, because I was like, what does that have to do with anything? And also I know some like really amazing people who have got children who are, you know, perfectly capable of doing all the things I'm doing, if not better, because they're like, you know, and basically it was just like very frustrating to be even asked questions like that. So they were basically a flat no, because it wouldn't align, because that's just, yeah, just don't ask me stuff like that. I think the
imagine working with them later.
Yeah, exactly. No. But I think the saddest thing about that is a lot of people ask those questions completely unintentionally, being biased or offensive or anything like that. They don't necessarily realize like how that shouldn't make a difference, and they think they're asking that question with your best interests at heart. So there's a big piece of work to be done around that.
Yes.
But I think for me, the thing that challenged me the most, and I saw this in our previous business as well, not just raising investment in like sales pitches and as like with customers as well, and especially because I've got a male co-founder, I could see, even though I was in the CEO position, or you know, the leadership position, I could see myself being treated differently to my male counterparts. And Ozzy and I decided when we set up Views for Change that I was going to lead it, and I'm the majority shareholder, and it is, you know, it's my baby, and that I was going to lead on fundraising, and there was actually never even a question around the fact that I was a female founder and whether that would make any difference. But I know people who have got, you know, mixed gender teams, or like, you know, the leadership teams, who have chosen to put their male co-founders forward for fundraising because it's so much easier for them. And it's in the sort of nuance of how people ask you questions. And there's an art, I think, to responding to this that I didn't even realize was a problem until way further on in my fundraise. And just even now, I'm learning how to sort of manage this. But men, well, in my experience, and I can only speak from my experience, so don't sort of take this as a, you know, everyone's experience. But when I'm asked a question, it's around how are you going to mitigate that risk? What are you going to do if this happens? And basically, like, there's a negative like connotation to what's being asked, and whether I can hack it and whether I'll be able to deal with that issue. Whereas for like Ozzy, for example, and I'm sure he won't mind me talking about this, it's much more about like, well, how are you going to unlock that piece of growth, or how are you going to, like, it's more around ambition. And there's articles about this, so I can try and dig them out, and we can post them or whatever. But there's actually probably a term for it as well, but I can't remember it now. But you feel it when you're like constantly having to turn things around to make it back to being a positive conversation and about like the potential of something, and you always being pushed back into being like on your back foot and having to defend yourself, rather than like talking about, you know, the really exciting thing that you're building and the potential like reward for everyone involved. And then that really seeps into your psyche, because you then start becoming in defense mode before you've even started, which is a really dangerous place to be, because then you can't really truly like build on the potential that you have, because you're constantly thinking about all the problems and questions that you're probably going to get asked. So yeah, I've experienced that throughout my career, to be honest. And it's not great, but I also think like I don't think it's necessarily anyone's fault. I just think people aren't even realizing they're doing that. And I also think it's quite sad for a lot of female founders that they feel like they need to sort of like, I don't know if this is even a word, but like masculinize themselves. Is that a word?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Let's make it a word. You know, like to be able to have conversations with people on a level. And I found it even, you know, in my career so far, I found myself becoming much more like bullish and abrupt, and not taking shit from anyone, because you have to do it to protect yourself. Otherwise, you know, you're vulnerable all the time. Which is a shame, because actually like there's huge power in like femininity and creativity and all those aspects for men and for women, but we have a really specific idea of what a successful person looks like, and it's a pretty like one gendered view of how people should operate. So not great.
Yeah. I absolutely love, this this saying, if it's a man, he's a boss. If it's a woman, she's bossy. So it's very unfair, but I absolutely agree again. And if you're a solo founder, solo female founder, I think a lot of times you just don't know that it shouldn't be like that, and you just go thinking that fundraising is just a very negative experience, and nothing is good about it. Even if if you end up getting the investment, you probably wouldn't you wouldn't want to go back again. But
which is how
absolutely.
I feel now. and also we should say, like, this doesn't even take into account, like, I have a lot of privilege on my side. Like, I'm a white woman in a like middle class area, and I have lots of privilege that I can live from, and that's a leg up for me. So it's worth saying that even though I have those like marks against me, or those biases that I experience all the time, that's nothing on other underrepresented groups that we're not even mentioning here, who will find this process much harder again. And there's just a lot of education and a lot of like honest conversations that need to happen with people, with themselves, and their part to play in it, and then also how we react to these things. Because when you're faced with a decision of, this person's offering me money to build my dream, or build like this thing that I think has huge potential, but I don't really like how they ask me, about whatever, or they've expressed some level of bias towards me,
right.
Then you shouldn't be faced with those questions where, like, I just want to make, should I just take the money because that's the easiest thing to do right now, even though you're compromising what ultimately is really important. And that's why I think groups where there's really specific focus on supporting, like Alma Angels, for example. Shout out to Scott Mackin, and I've got 2 other Alma Angels as well, who will only invest in female founders, and they their sole purpose is to uplift that whole group of people, and you completely remove that element of bias then. And I'm like, I mean, we could open up a whole can of worms here about how whether we should have like specific positive discrimination in these ways, but when like whatever it is, 2% of funding is going to female founders, you're like, there needs to be some work to be done. There's some work to be done, and we all have a part to play in that, especially investors.
That's true. Oh, I mean, I feel like I could talk to you all day, just keep it coming. Well, that's amazing. I mean, honestly, I enjoyed immensely, and everything you say is true. I think my experience has been pretty much the same, even though I moved away from the startup world. But anyway, could you maybe share the one piece of advice that is absolutely your golden ticket whenever you feel like you don't want to do it, or I don't know, that maybe startup is not for you, or something like that?
Okay, I'm trying to think, what do I tell myself when things are really hard? I mean, this isn't actually like properly, this is more therapy related than it is like work related, but I think it's so important to remind yourself that like, no matter how bad things are, or whether you think you've done something wrong or whatever, like, firstly, no one cares about what you're doing, and I mean that in a good way. Like, when you're getting in your head about like, oh, this person must have thought this about me, like, forget about that, move on, and do the things that you can do, like, to the best of your ability, and just like move fast. But also remember that like, you're good enough regardless. Like, your business failing is not you failing, and having failure as a sort of learning curve rather than a black mark against your name, or example of you not being good enough, is a really important thing to decouple, because your worth isn't attached to your success.
Oh, great. I mean, we couldn't
just came up with it. I just made it up.
Yes, absolutely, 100% original thought, but But so true. I mean, anyway, and a lot of people forget about that, and that's why we all go to therapy.
Yes,
But
quite.
anyway, could you also just one more request for me? Could you maybe recommend someone or mention someone that you think could be a great guest for our next podcast?
Yes, absolutely. You should definitely interview Charlie Rosier at Babu, and I actually think you
Doing
might already
that.
have her.
Yes.
Okay, so if not, then Jess Alderson at So Synced. It's
Okay.
a dating app based on personality types, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
super interesting. So speak to both of them, and I actually have a long list. So if you want me to send that over afterwards, I will.
Yes, please do. Okay,
Amazing.
well, thank you for that, and thank you for the talk. I mean, I enjoyed it, and like I said already, I would definitely speak with you more and more, and hopefully we'll do that someday again. So
Hopefully.
thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
I've
Next
really
time we're
enjoyed it. Thank
going
you.
to talk a little bit more about investments. So we'll have Beryl from Antler coming
Amazing.
to the podcast and talking about the state of early stage investment in the Nordics. So thank you,
Well,
Nicola. It's been a
thank you very
pleasure.
much. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye,
See
everyone.
you. Bye.